Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to the KSL.com Game Center podcast. It is September. We are in the thick of the sports calendar here at KSL.com. Football's in full swing. For more on that, make sure you're checking out Josh Furlong's podcast over on the Utah Checkdown, and also Cougar Beat with Sean Walker for the latest on BYU football. Today, however, we are joined by Ryan Miller to talk a little bit of hoops, a little bit of basketball, talking about the Jazz. We're about a month away from the preseason starting. Guys are starting to come back to Utah. I saw the team posted some pictures of a bunch of players working out yesterday, but there were some notable absences. Obviously, a few guys having played at the FIBA World Cup over the last month or so, with a few of those players playing right up until the very end, including a bronze medal matchup in between Canada and USA. Kelly Olynyk from the Jazz with Canada, and Walker Kessler, who actually started in the final game with USA, which was a bit of a change of pace from what we had seen so far in that tournament from Walker. Not quite, maybe what Jazz fans want to see after a breakout season for Walker Kessler, huh?
Well, yeah, it was always going to be hard for him to get minutes. Even when he was on the team, I think I talked to him during summer league a couple of weeks before the USA training camp started up, and he didn't seem like he had this like grand expectations of being this huge role on this squad. To me, he was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take it. I'm going to learn from a lot of these guys. Going to learn from a great coaching staff. And that's just who Walker is. He's going to be like, oh, go with the flow guy. Now, could he have helped? Maybe. I don't know. I know when they lost in the semis, there was a lot of like, oh, why didn't he play with Jaren Jackson Jr.? They could have been better. And it's like, yeah, he might have. FIBA is so different than the NBA game though, and it's like, I'm never surprised when the U.S. brings a team that just can't outright out talent everybody, that they end up not winning. It's like, and that this team wasn't a squad that you could just out talent guys. Case in point, Walker Kessler was on it. I love Walker. I think he's going to be great. He's not a top 12 player in the NBA. He's not a top 20 player in the NBA. They never had the big studs. So yeah, when you get to a game that these guys haven't played together a ton, playing a different version of basketball, and kind of you're going to struggle a little bit. And you found that out in the semis, and then again in the bronze medal match. That when you play teams that have played together a little bit more, with that style of basketball, you're going to struggle.
Yeah, so none of the Jazz guys, there were five there in the tournament. Walker Kessler, Kelly Olynyk, Lauri Markkanen with Finland, Jordan Clarkson with the Philippines, and then Simone Fontecchio with Italy. None of them ended up making it to the championship game, but Kelly Olynyk came the closest, ended up getting that bronze medal with Canada. Obviously, it's been well talked over. U.S. underwhelming, kind of like you mentioned. LeBron comes out and says, "Okay, I'm going to play, at the Olympics next summer or whatever." But I think it's become quite obvious that a lot of these countries have caught up to the U.S., right, and have a lot of talent, and that's evidenced by these Jazz players who were playing for several different teams. And Jordan Clarkson, Lauri Markkanen, and even Fontecchio to an extent had really good tournaments. I'm curious, kind of what you thought overall as we look back on this last month or so with FIBA.
I think Lauri Markkanen said something pretty interesting right at the beginning of the World Cup, where he's like, you're not necessarily going to get better during this thing, but your confidence could grow. And I think you saw that last year when he went nuts in Europe during the Euro hoop, or Euro basket, I guess, and came in, had a great season. He kind of put the same numbers up this year during the World Cup. His team just wasn't as successful. They had a pretty rough group, got bounced pretty quick. If you're looking for a guy that can maybe have that Lauri Markkanen jump, now I'm not saying he will by any means, but I think Simone Fontecchio, he kind of showed some of the similar things of taking over a team, being a top guy, and really did have some good moments. His team, Italy got smoked by the US, but he had 18 points, 5 rebounds, 6-13 from the field, played well in that game, and then played well throughout the tournament, really, and had some huge games for Italy. And so if you're looking for a guy he might be a guy that comes to training camp with a little more confidence that he can be maybe a bigger contributor for the Jazz. When it comes to the rest of the Jazz guys, like I think you saw what they could do long before this tournament, and they just continued to do what they did. Kelly Olynyk was that centerpiece for the Canada attack that the kind of was the same role he was with the Jazz. Jordan Clarkson was Jordan Clarkson, scored a ton of points, had a lot of cool moments. Lowry dominated at times, just didn't have the talent around him, I think, to really make a strong push, especially with the group they were in. And then Walker was sitting on the bench smiling and having a good time. So yeah, like I don't know if you can take a ton away from like, okay, this is what we can learn from these guys during this thing, but like, yeah, I think Simone, if you're looking for a guy that might use this as kind of a springboard to a big season, you can look at Simone. Otherwise, I don't know if this really made a big impact for any of the other five guys or other four guys.
Yeah, for sure. And as I kind of mentioned before, looks like Markkanen is back in Utah. Like you mentioned, they got bounced pretty early.
Got bounced quick, so yeah, he's back.
And so with about a month to go before preseason, things are kind of ramping up. We kind of turn the focus from the off season, now looking towards the season a little bit. And there's a lot of work to do. Obviously, you've got a lot of these kind of cornerstone pieces, Markkanen, Kessler coming up, and then you trade for a guy like John Collins, who I noticed was in some of these photos practicing with the rest of the squad. You've got the rookies coming in who I also noticed are playing and working out. Hendricks, Sensabaugh, these guys. As this team kind of comes together, are there any question marks, I guess, on this roster? Where are they at as far as numbers? Are guys going to get cut? What are kind of like those logistical things looking like over the next month or so?
Well, I think the question mark since July, since really the end of summer league and free agency and whatnot, was, is there another trade coming? It's getting late. I honestly don't like. If you would have talked to me in July, I would have been like 100%. There's another trade. I actually at this point I'm like, I don't think there will be. Like it's almost too soon, or maybe the one thing I can kind of see is the Jazz once again get involved in the Damian Lillard stuff, and Tyler Hero ends up here. But outside of that, I don't know if they really are pursuing one, or if they would even want one. Like it's kind of a time to ramp up right now, not to try to play with your roster. But yeah, of course, I didn't even think of this. I have not thought about the numbers game for a while, but I do believe they are legal. I'm doing a great podcasting as I am, counting the numbers here, but I do think they are. There's obviously going to be some guys that are not going to be on this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Great podcasting. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Oh yeah. So like you have like Omar, you're at 7. Why is Juan Toscano Anderson on this thing? He's not on the team, so yeah, don't worry about him. And then you got a couple two-way guys. So yeah, they're legal right now. I think they might be one. Nope, with the two-way guys, they're legal. So yeah, they're good. Which I thought they were, but just wanted to make sure. So no, they don't technically have to cut anyone. But they might if there's another trade in the vat. They've got a lot of non-guaranteed guys. So that is what you're going to be looking at. Like like Chris Dunn is non-guaranteed going into into training camp at least. I think the guarantee comes down somewhere in October. So there's a couple of guys like that, and so I don't really see like a need to cut people, and because Chris Dunn will definitely make the team, there's no doubt about that. But there will be, there's obviously going to be battles. I think the big question going in is like, who's going to be your point guard? I think outside of that, like everything else is kind of solidified. I don't know. They're like John Collins may come off the bench, I guess, if you really want to keep Kelly Olynyk in the starting lineup. And so there's some roster questions that, like, I guess the nature of the rotation questions will be answered. And that'll be fun because I know like Will Hardy loves Kelly Olynyk. He loves him. And that's why when people are like throwing Kelly Olynyk into the trade machines this summer, I'm like, I don't know if like the Jazz don't necessarily, at least Will Hardy doesn't see him as like money filler. Like, yeah, we can throw him to get a guy like to make the salaries match. Like, if you watch the Jazz last year, and if Kelly Olynyk, every time Kelly Olynyk was like not playing that game, and he did miss a significant amount of games, like the offense went to garbage. Like it just dropped. Anytime he was in, it was like literally an elite level. Like they were rolling at the beginning of the season with like Mike Conley and like obviously there too, but they were rolling because they had built something around Kelly Olynyk because he's like such a unique player. And like it's like he can, like the fact that you can use him as kind of a point center and post him up as a point center, it's fun. Like and Will Hardy is a guy that like likes to play around with that kind of stuff. And so I think he'll play a huge part of this team as long as he's on the roster. Again, I don't know how, if Danny Ainge cares about what Will Hardy thinks. So he definitely could be used for salary filler, but yeah, I think those are interesting things to think about. Like, okay, are we going to build around something we know, or is John Collins going to come in and take more of a big role there? I don't know. Like, we'll see. It'll be fun. They have a lot of options. Again, I was expecting a trade, so I was hesitant to truly analyze this roster because I just didn't think this would be the one that we'd end up with. But if it is, and it's looking like that might be the case, I do think it'll be fun. Like I like there's a lot of fun talent here. Again, I don't know who they're going to go with point guard at all. I'd go with Chris Dunn just because I was a big believer in what he did at the end of last season. I don't think it was fake. So yeah, it'll be fun. We're like 3 weeks away from this thing really starting up, so should be a good time.
Yeah, so just from a scheduling standpoint, so preseason kicks off on October 8th on the road against the Clippers. First home preseason.
It is not on. It is in Hawaii, my friend.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So, yeah, they're doing training camp in Hawaii. My life is tough in October. Dang, I got to go to Hawaii for a week and pretend it works.
All right, so run us through that schedule. When do you head out to the islands?
So they'll have like a media day here, like the regular media day. I think that's on the 2nd, and then they'll fly out right after that, and we'll be following right along with them. So training camps for them the 3rd to the 7th in Honolulu. Oh no, it's in BYU. They're doing it at BYU Hawaii, so in Oahu, but won't pretend to know what city that is. So and so yeah, it should be a good time. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know. And then the Clippers will be also there for the same week, and they'll be down in Honolulu practicing at the University of Hawaii, and then they'll meet for a game there, and then they'll both fly to Seattle and play there for a game as well. So it's going to be a lot of Clippers in the preseason to start things off.
Gotcha. And then at home on the 14th, October 14th, that is, first preseason home game against the Trailblazers.
Yes. Yeah, and then they got one against New Zealand, like a New Zealand team, I think. I'm not sure. I've heard that, but I'm not I haven't really confirmed it yet. And then so
it's shaping up to be a much more interesting next month than I was even expecting. So
there you go. Yeah, a lot of but yeah, so it'll be fun. We'll see what happens. But yeah, it's crazy to think that I always thought the NBA, it sneaks up on you really quick. Like college football comes, the NFL comes, you're like, okay, yeah, we got a couple months, and it's like just boom, it's here. And so we're here. And so as you saw yesterday, the Jazz posting all their guys coming in for OTAs and all that stuff. So it's fun. They're back in town. They're working out together. We'll see what happens. And this might be the roster. Again, July I would have said no, but now I'm probably leaning toward a yes, that this is going to be our roster to start things off.
So you mentioned the point guard position. The last guy I want to ask you about, and we can kind of close things off here. I didn't notice him in the pictures, and he didn't play in FIBA. Colin Sexton. Is he in Utah? I know he was being thrown around in some trade discussions back, several months ago. And he, could be seen as a potential starting point guard as well.
I wouldn't take anything away from him not being in a few social media posts right now. He's going to be on the team. I haven't heard anything that he has been on the trade block as of right now. Like obviously that can change, but he could be a starting point guard. I don't think he's a I don't think that's his best role. I know he's been truly working on more of a to reading the floor. There was an interesting video he posted earlier earlier this summer of him like kind of practicing a drill of reading the floor. Now, I don't really know what, like, it was him standing in the top of the paint and just kind of like passing to the corners. Now, I don't really know the like game, like where that would be appropriate in a game, but like it's true that it's like, okay, he's looking for those reads. That's good. He's like he's practicing those, doing it well, and it's like so. I know he wants to be that guy. I just don't know if he ever will be. I do see him still as probably a top 6-man type of player. But no, the Jazz, like again, Will Hardy will use what he has. We don't have a ton of we have like I think 3 games of him as the starting point guard after Mike Conley got traded before his hamstring flared up and all that. So but the first 2 games with him in, the Jazz tempo flew. Like they just were like, okay, they were pretty a slow, methodical team with Mike Conley. Obviously they pushed occasionally, but like it was such a like we are gonna just fly. Give it to Colin and let him just fly down the court. So it'll if he is the point guard, I do see the Jazz being like a different type of thing. It'll be more of like just a running gun essentially. Like let him just sprint up the floor because that's where his strength is. He's just super fast with the ball. And yeah, so it creates a different it would be a different style of play for the Jazz that they played mostly of last year, but I think they could be fun as well. And it was somewhat thing that they were clearly experimenting with before, he got injured and couldn't play anymore.
There you go. Well, surely if there are any trades coming up soon, I'm sure we'll be hearing about it, and we'll do an emergency podcast to hop back on and talk about that. But if nothing else, we wish you the best in Hawaii, Ryan. I'm sure it'll be a really difficult trip for you.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
we'll probably catch you on the flip side of that as things come back here to Utah and get ramped up before the actual season starts next month.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon, I'm sure, buddy.
Okay, sounds good. See ya.